It's Friday, fool, and you need this tool. Welcome back to another glorious episode of It's Friday, fool, you need this tool. My name is Kyle Voss, and on Fridays, I bring you a tool that I use here in this shop or that I have featured on this channel. So this week's tool goes right in line with some of the stuff I've been doing on the channel here lately, mainly shrinking and stretching, making some of the body panels for the Bipster, making some of the trim pieces to hold the body panels on the Bipster. One of the easy ways to make any kind of contoured trim pieces is with a shrinker stretcher. So basically, if you think about taking a flat piece of metal, just bending it 90 degrees, it would be straight. And if you stretch this edge, it's gonna cause it to curve this way, or if you shrink it, you can kind of get it to do the opposite. You can get it to curve the opposite way. Being able to do that, you can make all kinds of different crazy shapes. With this, you can really contour that thing to be custom. You don't just have to use flanges though. You could also use pieces like this. So you can kind of see that I've curved this thing around. Basically, I've just stretched it on both sides and it just causes it to curve. This is not just a flange piece. You can see that it has a thicker section there. Or with something that has a deeper throat to it, you can actually get way in here and you can make curves that look more like this. So you can go in here and you can shrink a lot of this, and then as you get close to the edge, you just shrink more and more and more, and it's gonna cause this dome effect. Now, I wouldn't recommend using a shrinker stretcher for this type of panel, although you could do it. So when I say shrinker stretcher, this is what I'm talking about. Basically, you have this big head. On the end of it, you have these jaws. And depending on what jaws you have in here is what process you're gonna do. So the shrinker, the jaws themselves will actually come down and squeeze that metal. And when it stretches, the jaws will come down and spread it. And so for every time you press this pedal, with your foot, it's gonna cause these jaws to do their work. All right, as you can see, I've got two versions of shrinker stretchers. One of these will do both processes, so you don't need two of them. You can actually just change the jaws if you want to shrink or stretch. So they also make smaller ones that can be held in a vise, or they have their own stand. You can shrink and stretch. Actually, I think the kit comes with a shrinker and a stretcher. They're a little bit smaller. They don't have that deep mouth opening. You can't really get material way in there. But if all you need to do is shrink an edge or stretch an edge, those would be perfect. You wouldn't necessarily need something like this. I bought this one probably a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago. And the reason I got another one is because I wanted to basically have that same ability to stretch on one and shrink on the other, just for speed's sake. A lot of times when I'm working on this thing, I don't want to change a jaw, or I need to do a little something, and it's not worth changing those jaws back and forth. The way to solve that is just have a dedicated shrinker and a dedicated stretcher. So you can see there's Eastwood's old version, and then this is their new version here. One of the first things I noticed was the length of the pedal. Obviously this pedal's longer than this one. I think the reason they've done that is because you have less leverage. You can actually see this rod. See how much further this rod hangs off the back versus that one. So this one here, if it'll focus, just hangs off a little bit, which I actually like. It's a little more compact. Other than that, the two are pretty close to the same. They use the same jaws. They both have a tray on the side. And I think for the most part, it's the exact same stand, except for the bottom. Now I do like this stand better. It has some rollers on the back. It's a little more stable, where this one's more portable. That one's actually made to anchor to the floor. Kind of work this thing a little bit for you so you can see what I'm talking about. I've already kind of started to stretch this edge, But if I keep going, it's just gonna make this thing even more U-shaped than it already is. So if you follow the channel, I've talked about it a little bit in the past, the shrinker stretchers. I've kind of showed you some use cases, but if you don't watch the channel, if this is your first video, let me show you where something like this would be very useful. So I hope you can see this, but in here I was trying to make basically a flange. It's going to come off this outer body panel, and I want to turn it and go in so I can make some inner wheel wells. And so I took some sheet metal, bent it 90 degrees, and then I needed to make it contour to fit this body line here. And so I just stretched this edge here and got it to curve. But in the same note, the body panel itself curves this way. So then I had to shrink the inner edge just to get it to conform. And as you can see, it's a perfect fit. Just shrink, stretch a little bit, shrink a little bit. You can kind of get that thing to match the exact contour you want it to. Cleco it in. When everything's done, you can go back and weld it or rivet it or whatever it is you want to do. All right, guys, there you go. This week's tool, Eastwood's new deep throat shrinker stretcher. I'll drop you some links in the description as I always do. I'll put some links to this style and the other style, so you can kind of, you know, if you're looking at maybe getting a shrinker stretcher, you can kind of determine which one it is that you need or want. As always, thank you for joining me. I'll see you guys some more this week. It's Friday, fool!